Gord Surgener has led this organization for the last 14 years and has passed the torch. And Ontario Agri-Food Technologies has become what it is thanks to the passion and efforts and energy that Gord brings to it. And he's certainly done that. And you've all heard his reports. Gord has not coasted into retirement. He's headed at full speed. And that means his replacement has had to take up the baton from somebody who's running at full speed. And that man is Dr. Tyler Whale.
It has been an interesting transition already. After 3 weeks, we've already made an impact, and the baton will be transitioned to me, not to right the ship, but to carry on a well-oiled machine. And I know that machine is being oiled by a bioproduct, probably soy. As per tradition, we have an interesting set of speakers who are here today to enlighten us with some of their views, some of their successes and their struggles in the ag community. It's a diverse community. But first, before we do that, I guess I wouldn't mind, Gord, I think you probably should address this crowd just for a minute, maybe.
Well, as I said to the board this morning, I've had the best job in the world for the last 14 years. I've had great chairmen, vice chairs, my board of directors. In 14 years, we've never had an issue with the board, but what I have found most valuable and what drives me is the passion of this business called agriculture. And as I said, I'm a people person. One of the things I'm training Tyler to do, don't look at the paperwork, go to the site, meet the people, make 90% of your decision based on the people and what they're about and how they think and their passion for what they're doing. People in this community called agriculture, I mean, we do it on our word. It's trust. You have to earn that trust. You have to stand up for what's right. But it's the people that make it happen. The paperwork is something that you can follow back in history, but it's the people at the time that make it happen and their passion. And that's been so exciting being part of that process. Thank you.
And one of them is here today to open up our presentations. It's my mother, Deborah Whale. She's been around the ag community for as long as you've been alive, I guess, by accident. She was born into it and probably didn't think she was going to end up farming for 40 years. But over the course of that 40 years, my mother also had the privilege of serving on a number of boards. She might have directed some of the boards that are represented here today. And it was almost always done as a volunteer. But you get things done that way, and she's always been a person who got things done. She's a visionary, as far as I'm concerned, in the field of agriculture, and she's an advocate for farmers, for producers, for processors, and for Canadian ag.
Just to put this thing into a little bit of context, I'm sure everybody in the room knows about TED or TEDx talks. And there are literally thousands of them up on the internet, and they're very well defined so that no talk can go longer than 18 minutes, for example. And the objective, I think, behind the people who started the whole movement was to present a myriad of topics to the general public so that they would be able to learn more about things they know very little about and perhaps delve into these topics even further. So with that in mind, I was asked to present a TEDx talk on the topic of building a future for agriculture in the world. No way. I don't think there's a human being on earth who could do a topic like that. How about North America? Nope. Canada, that's still huge, but I'll give it a try. And the reason I decided to give it a try was that I think it is extremely important for us to realize the very big divide between the urban world and the rural world. And I know that everybody here in this room is very much involved in modern agriculture, and you will know everything that I'm mentioning here and way more. But I fear that we are losing the battle for the hearts and minds of the general urban population, and I think every one of us here has to do our utmost best to bring the message of the crucial importance of modern agriculture to the Canadian urban population. There are about 206,000 family farms across Canada, and they are of all types. And I think it is extremely important for urban consumers to understand how crucial they are for Canada and for the world. But quite frankly, Canadian farmers are fed up with the uninformed, anti-modern agricultural pronouncements that we read and hear every single day from self-appointed experts and the urban media. Stories about factory farms, about farmers supposedly neglecting the environment. Farmers, starting with me here today, have to stand up and say, enough already. No urban consumer, no so-called expert, no media outlet has the right to pronounce on agricultural issues unless and until they are factually and practically informed. This unexplained swell of modern anti-agriculture sentiment, I contend, is eating away at the very foundation of, and therefore the future of, one of the greatest success stories on earth. And that is Canadian agriculture.
Before I go into the actual talk, I do want to make one other acknowledgement. Ontario Agri-Food Technology has lived by its membership and its boards, etc. But our ability to make change in this industry has been driven by government, and I really want to acknowledge the dollars that we have been entrusted with under Growing Forward 2 from OMAFRA, Agriculture Agri-Food Canada, IRAP, the Agricultural Adaptation Council, and there are a number of other agencies that we have worked with, but the point becomes that the word is entrusted with. We look at this as an investment. It has to have skin in the game by whoever else is coming in, and it is to our future. But government has played a massive role, and I want to acknowledge that. And the other thing I want to acknowledge is I've dealt with many different bureaucracies. We got the best bureaucracy, and I shouldn't even call it the best friends in those involved in agriculture within government. So our next speaker is someone I met for the first time in person today. I think we've talked many times on the phone. Jacob MacKellar. You know, we're always worried about the future. Where are the youth coming from? When I looked at Jacob and his age and his thought process, I said, we have a great future. In that regard, comes from a farm in Lambton County. Come on up, Jacob.
I'd like to give thanks to Agri-Food Technologies and Gord in particular. Being the new kid on the block and not having all the connections or understanding how all the systems work, Gord's been a great mentor to bounce ideas off and connect me with other industry people. So that's really been a huge help for a project like this. It's always good to have some support and confidence behind you. So what is edamame? Edamame is essentially a vegetable soybean. It is the same scientific name as soybeans, but it's a very different variety. The quality is a giant pod, great taste, and good color. So in comparison to regular soybeans, we're harvesting at the vegetable stage. Originating in Japan and became popular in North America through the sushi restaurants, it's now gone kind of mainstream, and in a lot of urban households is really a staple in their house now. One thing that Gord helped me out with was travel to Taiwan and Japan. That helped to really better understand the quality attributes of edamame. Japan is the main market in the world, and they have extremely high quality standards. So to learn from them and bring that understanding back home to the farm was a huge help. Now that we have our production up and running, it's really about outreach to the consumer and the market. In general, more marketing and advertising, and reaching out to social media is really important at this stage as well. We're going to continue with exports. There's a relatively large opportunity to export to the States and even back to Japan, as Gord mentioned. And I think coupled with the right processing capabilities, there's quite a large opportunity here for Ontario. And this is the family farm. This is all extremely important too when we're selling to retailers, especially in the space that we're in. They like to hear about the farm. They like to hear about the family. They want to know what you're doing and why. That connection is really important. And I think it gets back to Deborah's presentation about connecting back with the consumers. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to connect a little more and build some more meaningful relationships with our urban friends.
Our next speakers, it's an interesting duo, Alex Tiessen and Gregory Bedekarat. Gregory is a faculty member at the University of Guelph in animal and poultry science. He's been doing some research with lighting systems with poultry for many years. I don't know how long, Gregory, but I know this project has taken more than 3 years. It's based on historical research as well. And he's partnered. He's taken the risk, I guess, to branch out from traditional academic research, do something that's really applied, and throw his hat into the entrepreneurial ring along with his partner, Alex Tiessen. So these two gentlemen have decided that they can create a better light bulb for the poultry industry.
Well, since I was hired at the University of Guelph as a poultry physiologist, I've spent the last 10 years working on what controls reproduction in chicken, and more specifically in the brain. What are all the molecular mechanisms that are responsible for reproduction in chickens? So that one thing that we realized is that the red light was significantly stimulating the reproductive axis better than the others, and the green light was the worst one. And we could see that as the age at first take. So red light was actually speeding up sexual maturity, whereas green light was totally ineffective. And that was the same in both blind and sighted birds. Now, if we look at some of the hormone levels that we observe, what we see is that initial stimulation was actually physiological response. And the hormone levels that are indicative of the sexual maturations were further increased under red light. So there was a definite here answer that it is not just looking at from the outside, but even in the inside of the bird, the red light was more effective in stimulating reproduction. I received, I don't know how many, maybe 10, 15 offers from salespeople who were just trying to tell me to test their light in my barn. And I said, no, that's not the goal. We need to develop it from scratch from the knowledge we gain from research. And eventually, here, what happens is I came across a couple of interesting people that seemed that collaboration may have been happening. And what we did, mostly here was TS Electricals, and at the time it was Alex's father, Eric, who approached me, who said, you know what, I'm interested in developing an LED light. And he said, what do you think? And I said, well, we need to develop it from scratch. We need to have 60% red for the layer application. We need to have a dimmable bulb without loss of spectrum. We need to that bulb needs to handle fluctuation of powers. It needs to also handle cleaning and disinfection, including industrial high pressure washing of the barn. And it needs to be a low cost to install or easy barn retrofit if you want people to switch. And the timing was perfect because that was at the time where Canada was already contemplating banning the sale of inefficient light bulb, and which now is getting into effect where you're not going to be able to find 100 watt incandescent and soon not a 60 watt, and then they're going to be off the shelves fairly soon. And at the same time, the producers saw that coming and they were struggling, what is our alternative?
The benefits here, obviously the energy savings. We're looking at 85 to 90% energy savings. We have a high quality, high power LED chip within the bulb, and it's obviously for long lifespans. What they've looked at there is the life expectancy for the lamp is about 40,000 hours, and you have 7 years of given the lamp that's running about 14 hours a day. Big benefit for using LEDs is no UV infrared radiation and free of mercury and other harmful organic substances. So it's obviously friendly for the environment. It's going to last longer. You're not going to be discarding the bulbs every year like incandescents, because typically when they went through a wash cycle before, barns that were popping incandescents, every time they went through a wash cycle.
And Deborah alluded to the agriculture, food, and beyond, as I call it, and we had the first opportunity to use that beyond in a public event when Minister Ritz was in Leamington last Tuesday, it was, I believe, to announce a $3 million loan through the Agriculture Innovation Fund to Competitive Green Technologies Prism Farms on the technology of biocomposites and a whole new area, BioBlack R, that Atul's going to be talking about. With that, Atul, I'm going to ask you to come up. You've heard Atul speak before on biocomposites. We're going to look at a whole new subject matter. For every unit that we produce, it takes 3 units of agriculture to make the product. And it's literally millions of pounds of opportunity with that product.
Basic idea here is, how do you assist a farmer in creating value for hitherto undervalued ag biomass, perennially grown grasses, dedicated crops grown on arid land? How do you generate value that is scalable, sustainable, and you can see a future in that? And see a future with real customer problems being solved in real time. We created a product with the help of the university's formulation, which we took to market, called a bio bin. Some of you may remember that. It went to all the 1,300 stores of home hardware across Canada. The university invented that in a matter of about maybe 1.5 year development cycle, and we took it to market in the next 6 months. But the key point is, we could give the consumer the same price to the last cent of a biocomposite bin using 30% switchgrass as opposed to polypropylene at the same price point as a fossil fuel-based polymer bin. I'm proud to say to you today, Home Hardware's Ray Gable, their vice president, has allowed me to say this, that 70% plus of consumers today actually take the biocomposite bin because they say it's a no-brainer. It's no pinch in my pocket and my wallet. It's got the right thing to do, 30% less greenhouse gas emissions. It's made in Canada. Farms are from Canada, so why not buy this? And that, I think, is the key. When the company's name was going on my head, we called it Competitive Green Technologies for this very reason, that people do not, with all respect to Mr. Khalil, do not walk the talk in green. You've got to be competitive, and rightfully so. Why? Very importantly, you've got to be the lowest cost producer in the world if you want to be competitive in today's environment. You've got to make sure of 3 things. The capital equipment you design and make has got to do things which other people haven't dreamt of so far. Number 2, you've got to have people who are constantly thinking how to reduce cycle times and make process improvements. And number 3, very importantly, you've got to go to a customer, look them in the eyes, and really understand what matters to them in terms of their application. We can use all kinds of biomass for making bio-blackar. We can use undervalued product streams. We've used wood shavings. We've used switchgrass, miscanthus, oat hulls, coffee chaff, you name it, and we've used it. And it actually has, within standard deviation errors, pretty much the same functionality regardless of source of ag biomass. For example, a customer will tell you, it's great you have the same price, no problem, it's carbon black, or maybe a little bit cheaper. Are you going to upset my process? Do I have to change, in the case of the foaming industry, the polyol they use? Do I have to change my injection or pressures in my injection molding machine? Do I have to change the back pressures? Do I have to change cycle times, the mold? So these are all the factors that go into making sure that what you deliver is lowest cost, not lowest cost only in manufacturing, but the lowest cost of use for that customer. That's when the invention, that's when the innovation goes to market.
We do this again in another 6 months. I think March 6th is the date, and we'll all be invited back, and I hope to see many of the same faces.